Hi YouTube, welcome back to our Kaldheim Blue limited set review. We're going to go ahead and jump on a phone call with Yanks, just like we did for the white section, and discuss blue. I'm actually going to try to shorten it a bit because our white was way too long, so I'm going to be setting a timer, and we will try to discuss some of the cards a bit quicker than we did before, but it should be easier now that we don't have to go over all of the mechanics again. So let's go ahead and jump into our call. Hello.
Hello.
Are you ready to talk some cards?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna set a timer. This setting a timer is part of our time. Because, you know. Okay, go. So the first card we've got here for blue, guys, is actually a mythic, Alrune's Epiphany. It is a very expensive 7 mana sorcery, but it does have Foretell that you can cost for 1 extra, but it turns into a 6-drop for the final turn. You create 2 1/1 blue birds, and then you take an additional turn after this one. Exile this card, you can't do it again. So this is creating 2 birds that you will get to attack with on your secondary turn, so that's something to consider. The birds are pretty cool, but the second turn I think is the main part of this card. What do you think, Yanks?
Yeah, I agree. Clearly what you're paying for is the extra turn. The birds are just kind of incidental. It's very expensive, but anytime you get an extra turn effect, it's very powerful.
Agreed. So, the fact that we can foretell this and turn it into a 6-drop, and you know, between turn 1 and 8, you know, that's around the time you hit 6 mana, you typically have, you know, 2 extra mana floating around, especially when you start to get to turn 6 or something. You top deck your 3 or 4 drop, you play that, you've got some floating mana. So casting this for 6, and you can hypothetically say by the time you get to 6, there was 2 mana that you weren't wasted, that you would have wasted anyway. So at this point you can kind of negate the cost, whereas the earlier foretell cards you kind of can't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna have that spare mana somewhere. Blue decks especially aren't always trying to curve out quite as much as some other aggressive colors.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think Alrune's Epiphany is powerful. I don't think it's a bomb just because it's so expensive, and there are lots of times where it's going to be a very expensive Explorer that makes 2/1/1s.
Okay.
If you're just on like empty board, top deck, all it's going to do on an empty board is just give you 2/1/1s, which is something, but not 6 mana. And just let you go again. So I think it's good. I'm playing it in every deck, but not
Agreed.
not overwhelmed by it.
So are we thinking 4.5?
It's more like a 4 just because of how expensive it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it as just a straight 6-drop,
Sure.
which maybe is giving it too much credit, but yeah, I agree. I think it's between a 4 and a 4.5 for me, because if you're behind, it's not really doing you a ton of work. It can help dig you out, but it's not certainly going to win you the game unless you were already pretty close to winning already anyway. So I'm happy with putting it at the 4 range.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, we're gonna try and keep on schedule. We got a null, counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Not something that we're going to be looking to main board. I think for limited, this is just a straight 1 with some good sideboard synergy.
Yep, exactly. These are the type of cards we can save time on this. It's straightforward. It's a reprint sideboard.
All right, moving right along. So this was a really interesting card, actually. It's a 1/1 for 1. You don't have to cast it for snow. This is the Ascendant Spirit. And then you have to pay snow mana to increase it. And it levels up each time you do. First for 2 snow mana, then for 3 snow mana, then for 4. First, it changes it from a 1/1 to a 2/3 Spirit Warrior. And then if it is a Spirit Warrior, you can then upgrade it to 3. So you do have to transition into each phase. Turns it into now an Angel 4/4 flyer. I believe, I don't think it has vigilance though. Base tower power, no. And then after that, it'll give it 2 +1/+1 counters, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So over a lot of turns and a lot of snow mana, this becomes a very huge, serious threat.
Yeah, so any modern players or Cube fans will make this look like will be reminded of Figure of Destiny as a card that does a lot like this. However, the biggest difference here is that the requirement of snow mana to upgrade it makes it difficult. You're going to have to draft your snowlands. So you're not going to, you're either not going to end up with a lot of them, or you're going to end up having to spend higher draft picks on them. If you want sealed, you're only going to get, the 6 in your 6 packs. Maybe if you get a foil, a 7th.
Now, I will
Um,
say, when I saw white, I didn't see a whole lot of snow mechanics. So my thought is, when I was looking at blue, is there's actually a fair amount of things. So I'm wondering if, and also it looks like these snow pips on here are any color.
yes.
So I think that there's actually going to be very few snow decks. So I think that the lands will actually go much later than they do in most snow sets.
Yeah, that could be. We saw, there were none in white other than the Snow Tutor, which didn't require snow mana.
So there might be
Um,
exactly one snow deck, not any other decks that kind of can partially use it. So if that's the case, it might be a little bit easier to draft for the one person at the table.
Yeah, I do also remember some of the snowlands are going to be replaced with snow duels in the packs, and people are going to want those just because they're duels. So that's going to limit the number of snowlands that are free for decks like that. But yeah, if there's only one or even 2 snow decks, you have a decent chance of picking up um, plenty of snowlands. But you're also risking your mana base if you play a bunch of off-color snowlands.
Off-color snowlands, yeah, but if they're super easy to pick up, um,
You could have a lot of them, but do you want to play 6 off-color lands?
they might
That's a
not be
net.
off-color though. That's what I
No,
mean.
they might not. They might not be.
Yeah, if you're at a draft table, there's a ton of actual, lands that are being opened, and if hypothetically there's only one deck and you tend to be, you happen to be the only person playing it, then I think it might be a fair amount. Also, we haven't looked at the artifacts or anything, and in previous sets there are cards that for one turn turn something into a snowland.
Yep.
We've seen that before as well.
We have not seen if there are fixers yet for snow. So
I like it if you can reasonably hit your third snowland. The fourth is an option, but I feel like at that point you've probably already won if they can't answer your 4/4 flyer.
yeah, I agree. I mean, in principle, a 1-drop that has late game staying power is good. It's just a question of how easy are those snowlands to get, and I'm not sure we'll know that till we see the rest of the cards and play the format.
Agreed. So right now I'm in the 1 to 4 range. It's a pretty wide range, but I think that that's, if you have the third snowland moderately reliable, I think this card is pretty close to a bomb.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have it as low as a 1, just because unless you have absolutely no snow or no or 1 snowland, just the chance to make this a 2/3 for a 1 drop, makes it better than most 1-drops.
Well, at the very least, you have to dump 2 mana into it, so you would say at the very least it's a 2 mana 2/3, right?
You do, but it can be played at instant. You can be done at instant speed. You can do it whenever you have spare mana. Um,
I just worry
yeah,
that if you're not trying to be in the snow business, you're gonna not be at all in the snow business.
yeah, that's fair. Um, yeah, I think it has a wide range. I don't think it has quite as low of a floor as you do, but it definitely has a high range on the top end, and you're not going to want it if you don't have any snowlands.
All right, sweet. Moving right along. The Raven actually is kind of interesting. So it's got foretell for the same cost as we typically see for our 4-drop blue creature. However, in the last couple of sets, the blue creatures have always been 3/2s, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah. Most part we've seen those has been 3/2s lately.
So this has just got a little extra butt, and it breaks down the mana cost, so you can potentially do it over 2 turns. So it's nothing but upside, right?
Yeah, I mean 4 mana, even without foretell, I'd play a 4 mana 3/3 flyer in any blue deck. So foretell
Definitely.
is pure upside here.
I feel like
And
the 3/2 for 4, I'm typically on that like 2 range where I'm not like disappointed, but I'm not excited to play them. I pick them up late and they just kind of fill my curve. This feels slightly better to me.
oh, it's definitely better. It's it's not a bomb by any means, but I'm happy to play a couple of these in any blue deck.
All right.
And the fact that having multiple 4s doesn't clog your hand the way it normally would because of the foretell option helps it out as well.
I'm in that 2.5 range, you think?
Yep, sounds good to me.
All right, your turn.
All right, Avalanche Caller. We got our next snow card. Doesn't cost snow to cast. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/3 snow creature human wizard. And then you can pay 2 mana, and target snowland you control becomes a 4/4 elemental with haste, hexproof, and haste until end of turn, and it's still a land. So 2 mana 1/3. It's fine. Those aren't the stats we love, but they're not terrible. They're decent in a defensive deck. But that ability, if you have really any a reliable option to get a snow land out onto the battlefield because it doesn't cost snow to cast or activate. You've just got a recurring 4/4 every turn that they have to deal with.
If you're in the snow business, I think this card is great.
Yes.
I will say I typically don't hate 1/3s that do anything marginal. If it's like play a creature scry 1 or play a spell, get +1/+0 and trample, something like that. It's usually kind of minor. That doesn't always happen. I typically still like those cards enough to run them to fill out my curve. This seems infinitely better than that, or dead in the water. So again, I think this is one of those like 1 3.5 cards for me.
Yeah. I think this is a little bit less of a, even less of a downside than the Ascendant Spirit because really you only need a single snowland on the battlefield
I agree.
for this to be good. So if you can reliably hit one snowland, this is a good card, and then if you have multiples and extra mana, you can make multiple 4/4s a turn. So yeah, it's got a range, but it probably starts at a 2 for me because a 2 mana 1/3 is not the end, is not terrible stats to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just used to them doing a little something, and if this isn't going to be doing something, it felt much worse. But you know, you never know where you're going to want to be for your curve.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I can get behind the 2 to 3.5, and we've already seen a fair amount of snow cards, so it seems unlikely. And I also think that snow cards are going to be easier than in previous sets.
Yeah, they very well might be.
It seems like a very specific archetype, whereas it's not like a big theme that you see running throughout all of the colors and all of the sets.
Yeah, I mean, just scanning through, there's a bunch more to come in blue, so we'll certainly see them in this color.
All right. Behold the Multiverse. This is an instant for 4 mana. You can foretell for the same overall mana cost. Scry 2, draw 2, so it's a slightly more expensive divination, but you get that additional scry as well, which is pretty helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some version of this type of card in in a lot of sets recently. This is a little more expensive, but again, it's got like a payment plan with foretell. And it lets you draw 2. Some of these are usually draw 1 if they're cheaper. Okay, I like this card, instant speed. Again, I think blue decks you generally want these sort of draw mechanic type cards. So
I agree. I think the foretell cost actually kind of more than pays for the additional scry, so I would give this the same rating that I would typically give like a divination or something, maybe even slightly higher, but I wouldn't want to like edge that high. I would give it a 3.
yeah, I'm with you. I think it's better than divination. In every sense except the fact that divination can help you hit earlier land drops. Um, but instant speed makes up for the mana cost on its own.
It's
And
definitely
it's
better. I just, 4 mana is a lot historically for draw spells.
yeah, it is. But you get to look at 2 and being able to foretell it whenever you have extra mana, and then only
Yeah.
cost 2 later on.
It's definitely better if you draw it or play or able to wait and play it later game. But if you, like you said, need those earlier land drops or some fixing or an answer, this card gets a little bit worse.
Yep, agreed.
All right. I think we're making much better time today.
I agree. Next up, we have Berg Strider, another snow creature. It's 4 and a blue for a 4/4 snow creature giant wizard. When Berg Strider enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls. If snow mana was spent to cast the spell, that permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. And snow mana means in this case just 1 snow mana. Not all of it has to be snow. Just a single snow mana has to be spent.
Correct. So
Yep.
on its own, hypothetically, let's say we're not in the snow business. This is just a big clunky idiot that taps something down and allows us to alpha. It doesn't have flash, so you can't do it to like open the window for the next turn. So he himself is not attacking with this tap ability if you don't pay snow. So I mean, it's a tad bit expensive for the 4/4, but in white we also saw the 4. Oh, that was a 3/3. I don't quite remember.
I know we had the 3/6, but I know what card you're talking about. I just got to find it.
Most sets we're finding a 4/4 for 5 that does something. This one feels like it doesn't quite do enough for me without it actually being a snow land, and even then it's like not something that is a lasting effect or something that you can trigger multiple times. So it's very tempo. I like that if you can reliably get the snow land. If not, not a huge fan.
Yeah, I think this is, begrudgingly playable if you're not doing snow things. If you are, being able to lock something down is nice. And also we haven't seen, but there may be something that cares about snow permanence or snow creatures. So,
You're right.
I think this is,
I didn't even
I
notice he
think,
was a snow creature.
yeah, I think this is like probably a 2 with an upside in the snow deck of, maybe as high as a 3 if there's the right payoffs. We'll have to see if these exist.
Okay. Well, we also think that like a snow is not going to be impossible to get, so let's kind of meet in the
Yep.
middle at around a 2.5.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then when we talk about it in the untap.gg overlay, you discuss a little bit that it's got that about 1 point range, either 0.5 low or 0.5 high.
Yep.
All right, Bind the Monster. This is actually CGB's spoiler card. This is the blue aura removal. When it enters the battlefield, it taps a creature. It deals damage to you equal to that creature's power, so it's got a little bit more of a downside than we typically see, but it is dirt cheap. And then that creature does not untap.
Yeah, I actually like this card. I'm always interested to see what the blue removal is like because obviously it's typically the weakest removal color. 1 mana to lock something down uh, is as good of a rate as you can hope for. Yes, you're going to take some damage doing so. But generally, the equal to its power 3 to 4 point life hit you're going to take at the top end, other than something huge. I'm okay with that to lock something down.
Yeah, so a lot of people are concerned about, hey, you might not be able to lock something down because that could be the amount that you take for lethal, or then the other creature, the one flyer, is also lethal. My counter to that is the fact that you can cast this potentially much earlier, preventing a creature from hitting you 1 or 2 times before you can typically cast your Capture Sphere.
Yeah, and it also the fact that it taps it and keeps it tapped down means you can also use it on utility creatures with tap abilities. It doesn't just
Definitely.
have to be a huge 5/5 that you want to lock down and take 5. Sometimes it's a 2/2 that has an ability you need to lock down, and in that case, 1 mana and taking 2 is a great deal.
Yeah, but a lot of times I think that, this is one of the first times we've seen this particular ability. Like Feed the Swarm, we understand, but this blue is a bit weird. Normally it's just 4 and it does exactly what you said, but we don't have to pay the life. And I think that's something that people are struggling with.
Yeah, um, I think in a lot of cases you're going to take less by being able to cast this earlier than the couple times you might take the couple turns you might get hit by something before you can cast that 4
I
drop.
think it kind of averages out, right? Like
Yeah,
there's one game where you prevent 6 damage from stopping a 3/3 from hitting you 2 additional turns before you could actually lock this down, which actually saves you 3 life in the long run, versus the one time that you play it and it might actually kill you, or you can't use it for whatever reason. So, from a poker perspective, this is probably a wash.
yeah. There are a couple other downsides to the life to taking damage. Right, it's not as good to blink as like a capture sphere would be because you're going to take damage again if you do that.
Agreed.
Um, and there are going to be times when you just can't play this late game. Just like Feed the Swarm happened. There are downsides. The difference I think between this and Feed the Swarm though is black usually has better removal options. Blue usually does not.
Yes. Definitely agree
And
with
we
that.
haven't.
Blue is a lot like white in this, where there's always one enchantment aura, and no matter how good or bad it is in comparison to the other ones we've seen in previous limited formats, you're going to want to run it.
Yeah, I'm thinking just because it's probably we'll have to see, but it's likely blue's premier common removal spell. I'm putting this around a 3.
I also have it at a 3. I think the Bind and Gold is a 3.5. I usually think the
Yep.
auras, because you can like flicker your creature out of them, bounce your creature. They're not quite as good as any normal kind of removal, but they are very good to have in all of your decks.
Yep, and it feels while it's bad to get this, get it flickered or something like that. At least you only put 1 mana into it. It's not as bad from a mana efficiency standpoint.
Agreed. All right. Brine Borrow Intruder. This is a human rogue. Human seems like a big theme that we're seeing that, potentially could stack a fair amount. It has flash. It is a 1/2. And when it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2, -0. We've seen these a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 sets. There was the fairy that did it, and then there was a rogue in the previous set that was just a 1/1.
Yeah, these cards kind of vary wildly in their effectiveness based on whether or not there is some sort of theme. Like the fairy one was good, partly just because it had flying. Um, the rogue I thought was pretty bad unless you were specifically in the rogue's deck.
The rogues deck or the mill, because it actually milled two, right? So
True,
if you had a
although-
fair amount of 8 cards in your graveyard synergies, it could be an okay bonus.
Yeah, those decks often overlap, but they weren't identical. But yeah, this one on the other hand, unless we start seeing some sort of superhumans or super rogue synergies, I don't love it. Maybe you could play this in the 2 spell a turn deck, just because it's a cheap spell. But other than that, I'm pretty down on this card.
Yeah, I was kind of down on the last rogue as well. I will say that I would like a card like this in a lower to the ground, scrappier, more aggressive format, which we don't know if that's what this is. But if you're basically just bashing 2/2s against each other all the time, this potentially could be very useful. You're going to get a lot more use out of it because most of the games will be over by turn, like let's say 6. So your 1-drops have a lot more value in staying power in any one particular game. But I don't think that that's going to be the case in this set with all of the gods and the flip cards and the modals. It seems like we're going to get a lot of interaction per game like we have in the last 2 sets. So I'm not very high on this. I give it about a 1. Now, I could see maybe sideboarding it against a deck that's heavy Death Touch or something.
Yeah, there are definitely use cases for this, but this is by far the worst of the 3 of these we've seen in the last couple sets, and I'm with you on. I don't want this unless there's very specific scenarios.
I agree. Yeah, and at least with the fairy one, it had you had a little pew pew flyer, which was kind of a nice bonus, even if you're not getting the value. But I'm pretty low on this, so let's go ahead and give it a 1.
Yep.
Osmos Charger. We have a 3/3 for 4 flash and flying. Whoa, this is a rare. Okay, that makes more sense. Foretelling cards from your hand cost 1 less and can be done on any player's turn. That's interesting. So it's already fine stats, right?
And this has foretell itself as well.
Yeah, so you can eat something. Now I'm wondering, it says you can cast cards upside down for the foretell cost on your opponent's turn. Because it's on your opponent's turn, does that count as an instant, or is it still the sorcery? Like, do you have to play your creature? No, that wouldn't make sense, right? Because they're face down and your opponent can't verify. It just makes all your foretelling instants.
Well, so for the way this is worded is kind of awkward. Foretell, the way I'm believing I'm reading this, and I could be incorrect, but foretelling cards basically means it's turning that 2 mana cost into a 1 mana cost.
Yes.
You can only, no matter what the type of spell is, you can only do that during your turn. It's only the casting part of the foretell that depends on timing. Paying the 2 can only be done on your turn because it specifically says during your turn in foretell's ability word.
But the second part of the clause says may cost 1 mana less and can be done on any player's turn.
Yes, with this in play, I'm just saying in general.
So that's what I was just trying to see what the wording is, because typically you can't foretell a creature on your opponent's turn.
You can't foretell anything on your opponent's turn.
Yes.
Not even instants. Is all I'm saying, that it doesn't matter the card type. You can never pay that 2 on an opponent's turn unless this card is out.
Okay, yes, that does make sense.
So yeah, I mean, it makes everything 2 instead of 1.
And it doesn't affect the flipping of the cards, right?
Nope, that still is cost the same, and it still follows timing rules.
For some reason, I was thinking you could then flip the cards as well.
Yeah,
because it's not from your hand. It doesn't say you can cast foretelling cards, so it's only the morphing part. That's a little.
Yeah, the term foretelling is really awkward here because to me that's the ability word. It says foretell 2 and a blue. To me that means that's foretelling would be 2 and a blue, which I think is why they specify from your hand.
Yes, it does seem like there's probably a better way they could have worded that and made it less clunky, but I've also seen some cards have so much text that they just get rid of the explanation that foretell actually costs you 2 to morph, which I've seen is really interesting.
Agreed. All that being said, this card's great on its own. 4 mana 3/3 flash flyer is already great.
Agreed. And there's so many foretell cards in every single color archetype that, I mean, it's going to hit something.
Yeah. And blue, I would just imagine, based on the nature of the color, is going to have a lot of foretell instance where, they're being able to make it 1 cheaper, going that route might actually make the card overall cheaper, that you could do sort of both halves on your opponent's turn and get them.
Are we thinking a 4?
Yeah, I think so. It's borderline 3.5, 4 for me because it does depend on you having a decent amount of foretell to be great, even though it's always good. Um, but yeah, I think it's got a very high upside if you have a lot of foretell in your deck.
Yeah, a 3 power flyer. I mean, it's not necessarily getting there, but I think that with the amount of foretell that we've seen, because it's got creatures, spells, we saw a ton in just white alone, so I think it'll be pretty common. I think it won't be hard to get value.
Agreed.
All right, your turn.
Next up, Cyclone Summoner. It's a 7 mana 7/7 5 blue for a giant wizard. When Cyclone Summoner enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, return all permanents to their owner's hands except for giants, wizards, and lands.
Okay.
So that's a very specific ability.
It is. It's most likely going to hit everything except for itself.
Most likely, although there's probably a decent chance you might see some other wizards on the table. But yeah, there's probably not a ton of giants. They're usually large and usually show up at rare. Although this set, I do believe there's more than usual.
And if you're in
Um,
blue, you're most likely to have a fair amount of wizards. Your opponent might have some, but it's also just more likely that they won't be in blue and not have any.
Agreed.
It's
Yep.
expensive.
It's pricey. I think it's a good card. I mean, it's rare, so it's not going to come up. But you're probably not going to want multiples of things at this price.
I agree.
Um, but I'm certainly going to play it. I mean, a 7 mana 7/7 on its own is just a dangerous threat.
And
And
I don't hate 1/7 drop either in a
no, and
deck.
it's not quite a wrath, but it gets you back from being behind.
Yep, that's a nice tempo card as well.
It also it returns all permanents, so it lets you reset potentially some of your auras if you want to put them on something else, or there are some other corner cases where you can get some extra benefits or drawbacks
I'm in that
on this.
3.5 boat. How about yourself?
Yep, same range. Too expensive to be
Any
a true
stronger?
bomb. Yeah, but very good and certainly an early pick in draft.
All right, so we have Depart the Realm, 2 mana, instant cast, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand with foretell for 1 additional mana, which is, helpful. Um, I'm not 100% sure why this one's particularly helpful because it costs 2 to play it in its foretell form and then 1 to flip. So, if you can play it early, you can set it up so that way you're in a situation later where you don't need to hold open 2 mana, you only need to hold open 1 mana. But it'll end up costing you more over time. But again, if you, like let's say hypothetically you have nothing to cast, this turn, you might as well play it so that way when you go to 5 mana, you top deck a 4-drop, you can still then cast it. So, there's a little downside to giving your opponent minimal information and open it up so that way you don't have to then cast and save 2 mana. Also, someone in chat is suggesting that there is some foretell synergies where if you cast it from foretold, maybe it changes something.
Yep, double spell synergies. You can also invest the 2 mana maybe if you don't have blue yet and you're waiting to get it till later. You can at least pay part of the cost until you draw it later. But yeah, the foretell isn't a huge upside on this card. It's just extra flexibility is nice, is always a positive.
Agreed. Yeah, you can definitely set it up to where you only have the 1 mana, which is good too. Maybe your opponent doesn't play around something as well because you only have the 1 mana open, so it really limits how many things they have to play around.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean these bounce spells are always good. It lets you target your own things, so it gets things out from under auras. It's not only things opponents control. Targets any non-land permanent, so there's some upside there. Not a star, but a good card that you're always going to want to play in blue.
All right, what do you give it?
I think until I see the whole format, I'd probably put it at like a 2.5.
I'm
But
higher on bounce
it
spells.
could definitely be at least a 3. I'd want to see a little bit more what the rest of the format looks like.
I give it a 3, but I'm always very, very high on bounce spells. I love them. They're so strong, and it's so easy to 2 for 1. You get the tempo if you're in the more aggressive seat, and if you're not, it's just super easy to find a situation where they are putting an aura on something or a combat trick. Also, you can flicker an aura like a removal aura to then block and kill their creature if they, like, let's say have the gold bond on it. So it's still a 1-for-1. They'll be able to recast it onto your creature, but you ate their other thing. So like it's just so flexible and always useful.
Yeah, agreed. It could certainly be higher. I think bounce spells will often depend on the deck and the format, just how good they are. But I'm certainly never cutting the card.
Sustainful Stroke. We've seen this card reprinted half a dozen times, so I hope you guys really are excited to get another 4 of these in your collection. It is a 2-mana counter target converted mana cost 4 or greater spell. Usually not main boardable. You know, if you're some formats more than others, if there's a ton of things, including, you know, high-end kicker spells or something, not excited to play it in most decks. Definitely happy to pick them up for my sideboards. And maybe a 23rd playable card if you have room.
Yeah, you said it all. Not gonna put it in most of my decks. More playable in your main deck in sealed than it is in draft, since sealed is usually slower. But yeah, I'm sticking this in my sideboard. Otherwise, happy to have one. Um, but
Slightly better than a 1, just because, like, I mean, I've definitely played it main board
agreed.
in some drafts, but you know, it's never something I'm very excited to do. So 1.5 for me.
Sounds good. It's not unplayable, but I'm not happy.
All right, we've got a Thought Thief. It is a zombie rogue. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top cards of target player's library. The top card. So tiny. I can't get my setup in a situation where I can read chat and the cards.
The end of it is you may put that card into their graveyard.
Yes. So if it's a land, leave it on top. If it's not, throw it in the graveyard if you know, like it.
You can also use this as like surveil on yourself as well. You can look at your own library and decide if you want to keep it there or not.
It does say player, it doesn't say opponent, which is pretty useful. Actually, I kind of assumed it said opponent, so that might actually just be better.
Yeah, the fact that you have the flexibility, like if you're behind and are digging for something, you know, you're probably going to want to target yourself, or if you need a land.
Helps you smooth as well if you have like a 3-mana hand with like missing a color of land or something. Yep. You can maybe justify keeping it because you get 1 free dig here.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a card where the flexibility is nice because there are plenty of scenarios where you're going to use either side. Like we just talked about somewhere you target yourself, but if you play this on turn 3 and you have like plenty of land and a 4 and a 5 drop lined up, you probably target them and see what's going on.
Agreed. I give it a 2.
Yeah, I think it's a 2. That's what its stats are. The ability is nice, but doesn't change the rating that much.
It doesn't have a huge lasting effect on the board, which is kind of important to me, but it's, you know, a 3/2 for 3 that does something relevant.
Yep, agreed.
All right, Frost Auger. Pay 1 snow mana, look at the top card of your library, specific. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So this is the snow business card. It's also a human and a wizard, which we've seen a fair amount of synergy for. I think this is, again, a pretty big swing card. It's like a 1 if you know, are not in the business, and it's probably a 3.5 if you are.
Yeah, I don't know if it gets that high because I think we're seeing it's going to be hard to have a bunch of snow permanents in your deck.
It includes lands. So
it does include lands.
If you're hitting a land off the top, that's pretty big value.
Agreed. I think this is less likely to hit than we saw Dryad Greenkeeper a few sets ago.
That was any land.
It was any land, and it didn't cost anything to activate. And I think that card was more likely to hit than this will. So I don't see this getting as high as like a 3/5. I think it can have in the right deck with 18 snow cards. Sure, but I don't think you're gonna have that often.
I think it's gonna be roughly the same. Because you're figuring it's gonna miss on some of your lands, but not all of them. I'm guessing if you're in the snow business, like I said, I think that there's gonna be a ton of people just nowhere near the snow deck, so you're gonna be able to pick up a ton of on-color lands for it pretty cheaply compared to other snow sets. And then whatever lands you're missing, you probably fill out with snow permanents, because we have seen a few already, and I think there's no shortage of them.
Yeah, I do think the one difference from other sets is that so far every snow card doesn't cost snow mana to cast. So they are actually, some of them will be more playable in non-snow decks.
But most of
then you
them
would
are
see
not
it
very
pretty tough.
playable without snow cards, like this
The
one.
ones we haven't seen, we've seen so far. But I mean, you could play that 5 mana 4/4.
You could, but you don't
You know,
really want to.
no, but somebody's going to take that late rather than letting it wheel to you 12th pick, possibly because it is playable.
Yeah, I definitely think you'll have enough snow permanents to make up for the missing land, assuming you're the only snow drafter. And I could be way off. Maybe there's a lot more snow, and it won't be as easily accessible as I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think the past experience with snow, and I know we haven't seen the whole set yet, means that those they tend to be harder to find than initially believed, especially the lands. But I could be wrong. It's every set is different.
All right, we got a snow creature Yeti. Frost Peak Yeti for 2 mana. Or so it's a 3/3 for 4. So-so stats. We see that on crabs and weird things in blue usually. It can't be blocked this turn for 2, including a snow mana specifically. So it's got a little bit of a difficult time there, but it's a really cheap cost to make it unblockable actually for a 3/3.
It is. And this is just we're gonna see these. It looks like over and over again that you know barely playable in a non-snow deck. Pretty good, although this has less of a high upside than some of the other cards we've seen um, in the snow deck. But definitely want to play it in that deck.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the crab that we typically see that's kind of vanilla or mills some cards is like a 1.5. It's a curve filler if you're desperate for like a body on 4. This feels slightly better. And again, this is another snow creature. And then I think I'm a little higher on the synergy than you are specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the synergy is great. I'm less high on the availability of the synergy, and especially in sealed.
Well, I meant I'm higher on the power of it based on its availability.
Sure.
I think it's going to be a lot like the cycling decks. Like if you get the deck, it is insane, and there's not a whole lot of cards that are overlapping. But I think that hasn't been the case for previous snow sets. So
Yep.
I'm in
Yeah.
the
Well,
2 to 2/5 range on this.
yeah. But I'd say a 2, and then it's got a 2. It's got upside. Um, but it's all going to depend on, like a lot of these, the availability of snow.
Agreed.
All right, next up is Frostpire Arcanist. It's 4 and a blue for a 2/5, so not really stats you like. It's a giant wizard, and the spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a giant or a wizard. And when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for an instant or sorcery card with the same name as a card in your graveyard. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Um, Stats are not good, even with the cost reduction. A 4 mana 2/5 is not particularly good. It's okay at that point as opposed to 5 mana, and that's a very restrictive condition on getting a card out of this, because not only do
Agreed.
you have to draft or open duplicates, you have to have already gotten one of them
Mm-hmm.
and played it, and have it be something you really want to get a second one of them. Now, if you see this in pack 3 and you've got 3 copies of a removal spell, by all means, then this
Yeah.
goes up. But I don't think you can take this and hope you get that. I think you have to do it the other way around.
I agree with that. I mean, you can pick it up late, sure.
On spec, absolutely.
But if you're taking premium, I don't think it's good enough if you've got bad duplicates. You have to have good duplicates, so you're going to take those regardless. So I'm definitely picking this up if there's nothing else for me in the pack, hypothetically. Like if on Arena I'm like rare drafting or taking this that I'm most likely not going to play, I'd still take this because you might end up with 3 lightning bolts, and then I'm probably running this. But that's kind of the corner case. I'm in the 1.5 boat. It's like I would really need to be stretched on playables.
Yep, right there with you. I want a minimum of 3 copies of something good.
Yes.
Before I can have this.
Or you can have 2 copies of 2 different cards, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So that way you'll most likely have hit one of them and still have something in the yard.
Yeah, and it has to be. It's awkward that it has to be in the yard. You have to have already played it and not be in your hand.
Yes.
The other copy of it.
So it's either at least 3 of something or like 2 of 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
Which, there aren't that many good spells, so you probably don't want to be in that area anyway.
Yep.
Giant's Amulet. This is an artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay an additional 4, bringing it up to 5. If you do create a 4/4 Giant Wizard creature token that is attached to it, and then this creature gets +0/+1, and this creature has hexproof as long as it is untapped. That's an interesting hexproof ability, but I mean, better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a similar type of equipment in white that had the extra cost and create a 4/4.
Yes, this is substantially cheaper because the other one costs 7 to make the angel, right?
Yes, this is much cheaper, although you're getting a worse body.
The
You're getting
4/4 for 4 vanilla is not too bad.
No, but it's worse than the 6/6 or 6/5 flyer you got in the other one with the bonus. However, one big difference here is the equip's only 2 instead of 3, so it is somewhat more playable on its own.
But I think the ability is worse on its own. The other one
The
costs
ability-
1 more to equip, but I think it was a much better ability, wasn't it?
It was, but it also cost 2 more to cast and 1 more to equip.
Yeah.
I don't want to play this on its own, but I think to me the cheaper cost and hexproof is a good ability to protect something that's important.
That's never going to tap. I mean, it would have to be like a vigilance creature, or like most removal they're casting instant cast anyway, or if they're going to like lock it down with an enchantment, you probably attacked last turn and it's tapped. So it's got to be something that you don't intend to use.
Well, or like a vigilance creature, or something like, I'm forgetting the name of it, the card last set that every combat gave something a +1/+1 counter. Something with a static ability.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that, but that's pretty corner case.
Agreed. These are that's a small Luminarch aspirant. Thank you.
I don't know if I saw vigilance in the white either, and that's typically where we see it, right?
Just the big cat.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I agreed. I think this is better than the white one more because the 5 mana for the 4/4 4/5 hexproof is more reasonable cost. Not the other parts are just sort of corner case, like you're saying.
I think they're both unplayable on their own, but I'd rather pay more for a more usable ability that's going to get me something rather than this that's probably protecting nothing.
Yeah.
Either way, guys, if you're casting this, you want to cast it for the blue dude. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it, and I'm probably not very high on it. 1.5?
Yeah. Yep, agreed. We're in the
That feels a little generous. For most decks.
Yeah, I mean a 5 mana 4/5 does occasionally make your deck, so.
Yes, I agree. If you cast it for the creature and then it falls off and then you just have this weird bonus ability, then it's fine. But if you end up just casting it as is, I'm not interested.
Agreed.
All right, Glimpse the Cosmos. We're doing good. We're at 42 minutes, so we gotta hopefully come up with some really bad cards that are easy to explain. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. As long as you control a giant, you may cast Glimpse the Cosmos from your graveyard by paying 1 rather than paying the mana cost. If you cast this way, exile it instead, so you can cast it 1 more time when you get a giant. So basically, look at 3, draw a card, put the rest on the bottom, and do it potentially twice for moderately cheap cost. I think it's fine. You're not necessarily getting card advantage unless you have a consistent giant.
Yeah, we've seen 2 mana look at the top 3 cards before. They tend to see some play, not a ton, especially if there's like a spells deck, which we haven't seen yet. Blue red. But yeah, if you get a giant, if you can reliably get a giant, this card's good.
I'm in the 2 ballpark with some upside.
Yeah, I think if we start seeing that there's a bunch of giants, maybe we would have to revise that. But yeah, I think right now it's a 2.
Raven Lore. 3 mana, scry X, where X is the amount of snow spent to cast this spell. Then draw 3 cards. So, technically, you can just cast this for 5 and draw 3. I think that's not the worst thing in the world.
Certainly not. At instant speed, I'm happy to do that.
And then if you get to scry some, all the better. Toss a couple of lands. You figure each time you cast this, if you have any snow in your deck, you're gonna like pitch maybe, you know, a land out of every 3 times you cast it, and that's not a bad bonus.
No, this is just a good instant speed draw spell. 5 mana to draw 3 cards on its own is good, and the scry is just a bonus.
I'm interested to see what the snow instant means. Like, is there anything that's going to help you cast instant spell or snow spells cheaper, making this potentially a 4 or a 3 mana spell? Usually you see them on creatures or lands, which affect other things, but they're usually some sort of permanent that stays on the field. I'm really interested to see what we can do with this as an instant speed.
Yeah, we saw the one white card, the tutor, right, that can get snow cards. So, like, it could get this.
I don't remember that. I remember a tutor that got rune cards.
It was a terrible one that we just gave a 1/2 because we're never playing it, but it's a 3 mana. Search for glory, search your library. Oh, in that case, it is snow permanent, so I'm wrong, but it goes after snow permanent, and that was a snow sorcery.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So
yes, that one still doesn't work, but there is something.
Yeah.
There's could potentially the blue card that we just saw, that where you look at the top card of your deck and you can get a snow card. Is that permanent or is it just snow card?
No, it's just snow card. So that's
sweet. So that's something that would potentially hit this as well, being an instant rather than a permanent.
Yep.
What are you thinking for rating?
I think the base level, if you're just playing this for 5 with no snow mana, it's still probably a 3. Depending on what we think about how many snow lands we can get, you know, this could go up to 3/5.
It's instant, but 5 mana is still quite a bit.
Agreed.
It's a very nice late game draw, but it's going to be quite restricting in comparison to like a divination early that can help you hit your land drops and fix your deck and fix your, you know, whatever that you need. So it's got a little bit of a later game bonus upside, but definitely far more restricting. And there's going to be times where you're going to look at this card and be like, man, I just wish I had a divination. So I'm in that 3 boat as well. I think it's going to be better if you can get any sort of value off of the snow side, but we don't see any yet.
Yep. All right. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right. Icebind Pillar, we got it's a 3 mana artifact snow permanent as well. So you can search it up, you can do whatever. It counts as a snow thingy if you have a thingy that does thingies with snow things. Pay a snow, tap target artifact or creature. So that's pretty cheap. 1 mana to tap something permanently, but it has to be snow specific. So you got to be in the snow biz.
Yeah, I mean, this is a completely unplayable card outside of a snow deck. You have to reliably get to 1, which probably means you need to have 4 or 5 snow lands in the deck. But that being said, one of the better cards in your deck, probably, if you are that snow deck.
Yeah, what's the
Icy
artifact one?
Icy Manipulator was always a great card.
And that one costs way more, right?
One cost 4 and then 1 to activate. But it could also get lands, which was why they're never going to reprint that again after Dominaria. But yeah, I mean, that was always a first pickable card because it was an artifact that can go in any deck. This isn't quite that strong because it's blue and needs to be snow, but still a great card if you can activate it.
I'm in that 1 to 4 range.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
I think it's not 1, 2, 4. It's 1 or 4, pretty much. All right, Icebreaker Kraken.
Yep. Release the Kraken.
Sorry, if I don't mean to cut you off. Also, it's just we're at 47, so I'm just trying to.
Good. We'll go.
Snowball roll. All right, you go ahead. This one's got tiny text. I can't see it.
Icebreaker Kraken. It's an 8/8 snow creature Kraken for 12 mana, 10 blue. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each snowland you control. When it enters the battlefield, all artifacts and creatures target opponent controls don't untap during that player's next untap step. And you can return 3 snowlands you control to their owner's hand and return the Kraken to its owner's hand.
All right, so the last thing is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, it's protection from removal, basically. Very expensive protection.
Yeah, but most likely, if you cast this, they're then either dead or they remove it that turn.
Yes.
Like I said, this is going to depend highly on how available these snow lands are, how many drafters are supported in a snow deck per pod. And my co-host and I here seem to have a slightly different variation on what we think that's going to be like. So, I mean, it still is super expensive. I mean, you have 3 snow lands out, like best case scenario. This is what, still a 9-drop?
Yeah, you need to reliably be hitting, I'd say 4 snowlands before you put this in your deck, and that means you're gonna have
8?
8 or 9 of them.
Yeah. So it's fun. I like sea animals. I want to play this card, but even in the snow deck, this is still not playable hardly, unless you're just like the best snow deck in the history of ever. So
Yeah. There are scenarios where I could see picking this up if you can get it late, and then trying to, if you happen to end up with a bunch of snowlands, great. If you're not passing up on anything, but yeah, this is a 1 in 98% of decks.
guys, can we get a streamer shout out for CGB? Thank you guys so much for the raid. We are doing a limited set review, going over every single card here in Kaladesh over 3-ish days. My co-host is one of my mods, Yanks. We are kind of going at a quick pace. You guys are welcome to chime in. I've got the chat box there for people on YouTube to see your guys' thoughts on the cards. But like I said, we're kind of trying to get through each color in about an hour. Also, CGB is going to be joining us again later for community night, so stick around if you guys want to see him jump off a boat and die a bunch. What do you rate this card?
I think this is a 1, and you will know when you absolutely want this card, and it's going to be very rarely.
I think it's a 1 or a 50.
Yes, that's. Yep, I am fine with that. I just, yeah.
Oh, I said Kaladesh. I meant Kaldheim. Just kidding. I'm
and you will know, and you will know when it's a 50 pretty easily.
Inga Rune Eyes. So we've got a legendary creature, human wizard here, guys. Enters the battlefield scry 3. It's a 3/3 for 4, so it's got that same crab cost. So we want the ability to be very good here for it to be playable. Enter the ETB scry 3. Okay, adds about a half a point in my opinion. When it dies, draw 3 cards. If 3 or more creatures died this turn. Okay, so you really need to like have some crazy big combat phase, right? Triple blocking things, stalled board, and then you get to draw a ton. That's a fair amount of upside if it happens.
Yeah, I don't think you're likely to trigger that often, but so I mean, I'm mostly rating this card on the other ability, and its stats, which are fine. 4 mana 3/3 with Scry 3 is something I'm gonna play. Possibly some wizard synergy or human synergy, and that
it stops your opponent from attacking with like 2 big creatures, right? Because then you can just put this strategically with a couple of tokens to, like under other things. So I think you might trigger it more often than you think in potentially a chumping situation.
This is a card that I can guarantee people are going to get messed up on Arena by the complications of assigning damage, where you might actually not want to kill this card and overkill something else.
Yes. So you can choose, like, if you double block, like, let's say they have a 6/6, you double block it with a 3/3 and a 3/3, and then they block your other thing with a 1/1. What you could potentially do is assign 6 damage to the other 3/3, or 6 damage to this 3/3, and all the damage from the other creature onto the 1/1, and then just choose to only 1-for-1, as opposed to, like, let your creature kill both creatures. That's going to be tough. I agree, but that's a really, really smart thing that you can do to get around this card.
Yeah, it's nice protection from a board wipe too. We have seen one already, so that's another upside. Again, it's a rare, so not gonna come often.
It says someone in chat is saying when this creature dies, draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died this turn. So it includes the creatures that you're double blocking, not just yours. I did misread that. I assumed it was yours. So that's, in my scenario, you're still getting to draw, right? Because you still kill their creature plus your 3/3 and your token.
Well, they can just not kill this.
That's true. Yeah, they could assign the damage to the other one potentially.
This basically has to be a chump blocker for that to work, or a trade. And if when this gets involved in double block scenarios, there's going to be times where they will just choose not to kill it.
I have not gone through the green cards yet. No, we're doing them in order.
Which, to be fair, is okay too, right? That it may turn what would be a 2-for-1 into a 1-for-1.
All right, what are we rating this card?
I've got it as a 3.
Okay. I might be a little higher on it. I think a 3 is like filler I'm happy to run. I think this is slightly better than that. Not winning games by any means, but... Oops. So yeah, I'm in the 3 to 3.5 range.
Yeah.
Carfell Harbinger. It is a zombie wizard in blue, a 1/3 for 2, normal stats and mana cost. Tap, add a blue. Spend this mana to foretell a card from your hand or cast an instant or sorcery spell. Okay, so it can, foretell, drop those to 1 cost, or the instants and sorceries, which we have seen previously.
Yeah, we see these type of cards fairly often where you have the restriction on what you can spend the mana on. This is a little bit broader than most because foretell is in all sorts of types of cards.
There's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them, so I think you're going to more reliably get mana out of this than you would in some of these cards in previous sets.
I agree with that. I'm in the 2 to 2.5 range.
Yep, same thing. Doesn't have to be. It's not great, not a bomb, but happy to play it.
All right, your turn.
Littjara Kinseekers. It's a 4 mana 2/4, costs 3 and a blue for a shapeshifter, which has changeling. So changeling is back, meaning this card is every creature type. When Littjara Kinseekers enters the battlefield, if you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, put a +1/+1 counter on this and then scry 1. So 4 mana 2/4 with a reasonable chance to be a 3/5. Since if you have 2 of anything on the battlefield, this counts as the third one.
I don't think so. If you that share a creature type. Okay, I thought it said share a creature type with this creature, and then that would not be the case, right?
Well, this will share a creature type with every other creature on the battlefield.
No. I know, but I thought it said if you have 3 or more creatures that share a creature type with this creature.
Oh, in addition.
Yeah. So I thought it was phrased a little bit differently. Yeah, but you're right. So 2 warriors or 2 humans or whatever would actually activate this. Yeah.
So I think you're going to activate this fairly often. You do have to have 2 creatures on the board, and so it's not always. And it's, a pretty bad top deck late game if your board's not full.
I will say that the creature types haven't been super wild either. So there's like human warrior, and then a human cleric, and then a merfolk wizard, and a human wizard. So like there's a ton of overlap. Everything seems to have 2 creature types. So the idea that like even if you don't have a ton of synergy within that, you will actually just accidentally have a bunch of overlap, because you'll have a human warrior, and then you'll have a merfolk warrior, and then you'll have a human cleric, and like it just kind of will back and forth a bit.
Agreed. Yeah, this doesn't have to be in a heavy tribal deck.
Yeah, I'm still not excited about the card unless I can, make use of the shapeshifting otherwise. It's still like a 3/5 for 4, which is fine.
Yep. And scry 1, which is nice, but not a lot.
What are you thinking?
I think it's like a 2. It's not exciting. But unlike a general 4 mana 2/4, I don't particularly want to play, but
I agree with that. If I have other things that want the synergy with like the auras and stuff that trigger the anthem, things like that, then sure. But yeah, I'm in the 2 boat.
Yep. Or if there's things like that need a giant or need a wizard, or especially if you have a bunch of different ones, this triggers all of them.
All right. So now we've got Mists of Littjara. It is an aura with flash, and you can enchant a creature or a vehicle, and it gets -3, -0. This is a bit lower than we've seen. There was like a -6, -0 one previously. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of these auras, but they're fine.
Yeah. Flash means you might be able to turn a trade into a one-sided combat for you, but yeah, these cards are playable but not exciting.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, versatile than like a trick. If you're pumping your creature, you get one use out of it, you eat their thing. Whereas this is potentially like, okay, you're in a bad situation with a flyer you can't remove. This does kill most flyers. They're usually going to be 3/3s or less. So, I mean, I don't love it, but if you're desperate.
Agreed. And the fact that it does actually hit vehicles, which a lot of these things can't because they're not instant speed, is nice. But I'll play it. I'm not unhappy to play it. I just have it as a 2.
I also have it as a 2. All right. Mistwalker. We've got a shapeshifter 1/4 with flying for 3. It is all creature types. For 2 mana, it gets +1/-1 until end of turn. So you can do that a couple of times as well and get a nice little beater in the air if you've got the extra mana to put into it.
Yeah, 3 mana 1/4 flying is a little bit of weird stats, but the ability, it's obviously got such high toughness, so you can use the ability a couple times.
Yeah, it'll
Um,
stonewall some more aggressive decks too.
yeah, and it's another one of those kind of threat of activation cards. They can't really block this with a 2/2 flyer because you'll just eat it.
Hmm.
And then you don't actually have to spend the mana. So, yeah, Changeling's nice bonus. Um, again, this is I'd put this a little higher than some of the more recent cards. So I'd say it's like a 2.5, just because the flying is nice. And the flexibility for this to be a good blocker and a good attacker.
Not something you're
Um,
excited about, but definitely something, that you're not upset about.
yep, agreed.
All right, two
Yes.
and a half.
All right, Mystic Reflection. Uh, this is a 1 and a blue instant. Choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature, and it has Foretell for blue. So this is a weird card.
It definitely is.
You can play it both offensively and defensively, right? You can target something large of your own, as long as it's not legendary, and then uh, play a couple cheap things, and now you've got 3/4/4s for a couple cheap mana.
Yeah, or if you have like the card
Or
that makes the 2 spirit tokens or something, or any kind of token generators, this could be good.
Yep, you can also play it in response to them casting a planeswalker, and now they have a 1/1 spirit instead. Um, or one of their, the Kraken goes from they pay 8 mana for an 8/8, and they get a 1/1 soldier.
Yeah, so that's
Um,
definitely interesting. I was thinking of it more on your side of the board, but using it on their side of the board is, holding it open. If I get a good thing, if I can produce my 2 tokens, then this will be great. And then you're just like, oh, oops, Planeswalker, got him. And you're right, you turn it into like a 2/2 something, and then that's pretty nice. Very
yeah,
flexible. I wasn't really looking at it that way.
yeah. I think the fact you use this both ways makes this card playable, and it's a rare, which means it's gonna be very hard to play around.
It's cheap too.
Um, and cheap. Yep. Um,
I'm pretty happy with this card.
I am too. I think this is, I don't know, like a 3/5 maybe.
I have it at 3/5 as well. I mean,
It's
I would
it's hard
actually
to
rate it
judge.
higher if you have some big bombs in your deck, but you have to like have something on board and then produce something else, and you have to like minus the value that something else would have been on its own. Like if it was a 2/2 and you're turning it into a 4/4, it's actually not that much bigger rate. So I mean, it's a 3/5, but if you've got like some crazy angels and stuff, then sure, it's a bit bigger.
Yep, and they can target the uh thing in response and fizzle this, so they can remove it.
All right, we got Arvar the All Form. It is a changeling, 3/3 for 4. So we've got a lot of the 4 slots here in blue, which we don't typically see that many of. It is also a shapeshifter. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more permanent you control, create a token that is a copy of one of those permanents. Interesting. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard a card, create a token that is a copy of target permanent. Okay. So discarding, I mean, some sets it's a little bit more relevant than others. It's just a nice bonus. I'm going to say that that's kind of just not going to come up all that often. But being able to hit your own creatures with pump spells and stuff and then duplicate your cards is pretty nifty.
Yeah, you have to have a reasonable number of instant or sorceries that you want to target your own creatures with, which generally are going to be pump spells.
Or bounce
There's
spells. You have some ETB effects. You can like ETB
Yep.
your bounce spell or remove an aura off of it that's negative. Create the copy, replay it either as a fresh creature or for the ETB effect. It does have some really nice
Yeah,
bonuses.
it has some value. I agree the discard part isn't that relevant because not only is it discarding, it has to discard this card. So odds are you're probably not a lot of times not going to want to discard this if your deck's built around the instant or sorcery part. But the fact that you get to choose to discard it if there's a mind round effect um, is nice. Um, and interestingly, the second half of this lets you choose opponent's permanents. Um, the
Choose
first
it.
half doesn't.
Create a token, copy this a target. Oh, yeah. So you're saying if you do discard this, then you can choose their target if you don't have one? That's true.
Yep, or if
But
they
the
have a
first
better
one is yours specifically.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think this is it's definitely sort of a build around in that you need to be able to take advantage of the top half for it to be good. But even without a ton of triggers, 4-mana 3/3 Changeling is worth playing on its own.
Yeah, I think
Seems
every
like,
deck
so.
will have some. Whether or not it's going to be like a huge payoff that you're going to be getting consistently is another fact, another thing. But I think it's going to be pretty common that you will have 2 to 3 spells that you are likely to want to use on your own things.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cards that has a range. I think it's a 3 in a deck with only a couple targets, but it can if your deck's built around it, it can easily be a 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. I put it at a 3.5 personally, just kind of going in the middle. Obviously,
Yep.
everything has a floor and a ceiling, but my ratings I tend to try to like go with how I think they will perform in the average deck.
Yep.
All right, we got Pilfering Hawk. It is a 2 mana 1/2 flyer, and if you pay a snow land, you can draw a card, then discard a card. Seems pretty good.
2-mana looters are pretty common. Paying snow is a bit annoying, but if you can do it, then this is definitely a card I want. And the fact that it has flying is nice, as opposed to a lot of looters. So, it's
Yeah.
probably like a 2/5.
Yeah, most of the looters usually aren't flying, so I think it's a little bit better than normal. And you can pay snow mana of any color, which is, definitely important. I'm in that 2/5 boat too. I don't think it'll be hard to get some abilities off of this, and you're not going to want to do it every turn either.
Yeah, agreed. And it's nice that on the turns you don't want to do it, you can likely attack with it, as opposed to the other ones that just kind of sit there.
Agreed. All right, Raven Form. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird token with flying. Okay, with foretell. So sideboard card, artifact. Oh no, exile target artifact or creature. They get a 1/1 creature. Never mind.
Yeah, 3-mana actual hard removal for blue. Is nice. It's sorcery speed, so you can't use it to sort of half protect your own creature from removal. So it doesn't have that flexibility like the one that made an angel from Core 21 did. But it also doesn't have the downside that you're only giving them a 1/1, not a 4/4 like that card did. So
Why can't you use it on your own things?
you just can't use it to protect it from removal, because it's a sorcery.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Um,
I was like, it
so
reads the same. I wasn't even looking at the speed.
Just most likely you're not going to want to turn your own thing into a 1/1 flyer. Maybe you do if you've got it locked down under an aura or something.
That's so minimal value, though.
Yeah, I
You
think
might
this
as well
is
just
more
have a spell that's 3 mana, make a 1/1 flyers. I'd rather just play a
agreed.
1/1 flyer.
Agreed. This is really just that. This is really just a removal spell. And a pretty good one because you generally in blue don't mind giving them a 1/1 flyer because you probably have flyers of your own to deal with it.
Yeah, probably. I think if you don't have any flyers, it's substantially worse. And if you have a good chance of like being able to box with their flyer, then I think, it's weird how much of value you put on a 1/1, but like sometimes if you are behind and this is your removal spell, you need to be putting in a little bit more than just 75% of a card worth of value.
Yep, I agree. That being said, I'm still pretty happy with this card. Playing it probably in multiples in any blue deck. Probably a 3.
Okay, I gave it a 2/5 because I think it's not as good as the lockdown card, the tapping card.
Yeah, they both have downsides. That one is cheaper, which is nice.
Yeah.
But cool. All right, this next card is pretty weird.
Thank you. Appreciate the sub. Our sub counter works again also, which is good to see.
This next one, Reflections of Litjara. 4 and a blue enchantment. As it enters battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. Which basically for creatures means or permanents, you get a token.
Yeah, and there's a ton of shapeshifters that we've already seen, so that's kind of cute.
Yep, this is great in a deck with a bunch of changelings.
So you just pick whatever you have the most of that isn't a changeling, and then all of your changelings count for this as well.
Yep, whatever you have the most of in your deck or in your hand. If you happen to have a bunch of wizards or something, then you can get the triggers.
It's a bit expensive, so I mean you have to have some draw in your deck.
It is a 5 mana do nothing on its own. You're spending 5 mana and having no impact on the game.
And most of the shapeshifters are rare plus.
We've got 2 commons shapeshifters.
Both ones we decided we didn't want to run.
No, the bird we'd play.
Yeah.
The 1/4 flyer.
So do we want to run this for cards that we were like only so happy about?
Yeah, I think this is very questionable. But powerful if you have a few changeling. If you got a couple birds, which I'll play in the deck, and I haven't seen that there are changelings in other colors yet.
I'm this in the 2 boat.
I think on average, I think you're right. I think this is another one of those that's like a 1 or a 3.5, because if you have a bunch of changelings, this card is great.
All right.
Yeah, on average 2 seems good.
Yeah, we'll put it on the upside. When we make the grid, we'll give it that special color, to indicate upside. So run a shore, choose one or both. I always like those. Not a huge fan of 6 mana spells in blue typically. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it on top or bottom of their library. Oh, it's kind of nice. It doesn't go back to their hand. So it's actually like 1-for-1 as opposed to a bounce, which is usually just tempo and a loss of card advantage. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So you get to do both. So you just double tempo them and you get to replace your own card with theirs by making them redraw it, which is kind of nice. It's expensive, but it's a fair amount of value.
Yeah, it's pricey. Instant speed is nice. And it does time walk them to an extent by putting the card on top of their library or bottom, and then it gets rid of it permanently.
It's also instant. Usually 6 mana spells in blue are sorcery speed.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want more than one of these.
No. And you might not want one.
Yeah, but I'm generally going to be happy to play the first one. It's probably like a 2/5.
Okay, I was thinking a 2, but I do think it is better than the ones we've seen in the last one, and those ones I gave like a 1 and 1.5. So I could see a 2 or a 2/5. I feel like maybe it'll play better than I expect, given that it goes back onto your top of their library is pretty valuable.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be dependent on how fast the format is.
We're doing good. Only an hour and 11 minutes, so it's way better.
Only have 4 cards left.
Yeah, so we cut it down by like 45 minutes. Rune of Flight. Enchant permanent. When Rune of Flight enters the battlefield, draw a card, so you're not getting 2 for 1. Enchant permanent has flying, as long as enchant permanent is an enchantment. Wait, what is that? An equipment.
Equipment.
Enchant permanent. All the equipped creature.
Yeah, all the runes are the same. Have that same ability where you can enchant a creature or an equipment and give it that keyword.
So the nice thing is if you put this onto the equipment, they're less likely to be able to remove it, and then it can bounce from creature to creature, giving it flying. So putting these things on equipments are typically going to be better. And I like the flying because there are some, creatures that want to get in and deal damage to players to give you bonuses. I think it's better than the white one personally, but still not great. The draw card also kind of negates the typical negative effect of an aura of getting 2 for 1.
Yeah, definitely better than the white one. This one I think is actually playable. I don't think the white one is. So
I'm in the 2 boat.
Yep, it's a 2. Can get some benefits from the 2 spells a turn deck because you're replacing itself, but that's about it.
All right, saw it coming. It's a 3 mana counterspell with foretell, so it's just a potentially cheaper counterspell. More over 2 turns, but costs less if you foretell it. So kind of just a flexibility thing. I'm always kind of fine with playing counters.
Yeah, 3 mana counter spells, cancel I don't like playing in draft, but anything with a little bit of upside, in this case the upside being the cheaper cost and the fact that you can play it without needing double blue, if you foretell it, makes this playable, but I'm still like right around a 2.
Okay, yeah, I'm in the 2 to 2/5 range. It really just kind of depends on maybe it's a lot more interesting in your sideboard if you have big bombs in your opponent's deck.
Yeah, and I am always playing the first one of these in sealed, as opposed to draft. Also, it just like most counter spells, it gets way better if you have other instant speed things to do. so you can hold them up and then still not waste the mana if you have something else to do at the end of turn.
I agree with that. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and put the rest into your graveyard. We see this all the time. It's been renamed half a thousand times, right?
Yeah, this one is actually a straight reprint name-wise too, from a more recent card. You just don't play this unless you really have graveyard synergies. If I had a bunch of graveyard synergies, sure, I might play this card, but that's about it. Otherwise, it's a 1.
Or if your deck has a ton of really big bombs you want to dig for.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not the worst thing to have as a 23rd card because it does cycle slightly better than cycle.
Helps you play your second card spell if you've got huge payoffs for that, but for the most part, most decks are not going to want this.
Yeah, this is a 1.5 maybe in the right circumstance. It's never great and often terrible.
I feel like I see these kinds of cards in a lot more experienced players' decks more than they are in my deck, so I think that there's specific reasons you want to have this if you're looking for very key cards, but finding those, deciding that that's what you need is a very, I think, high-end thing to consider. Most decks aren't going to want this, but there are definitely a lot of reasons that you might, and we just don't consider them as deeply as we should.
I agree. We've talked about some cards where, I've said you will know when you want this card. It's because it's obvious. This one's a little tougher to know when you're going to want it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. I've definitely played against some pros and I'm just like, that's a really interesting card. And like it melds very well with the overall theme of the deck. And I think that there's a lot of cards, and this is one of them, that kind of falls through the cracks where it should be considered more than it is, but it's not playable in most decks.
Yep, I agree. It's another card I think is also a little more playable in sealed than in draft.
All right, we have a 5/6 for 6. It is a giant rogue for giant synergies. It's got flash, under the sea, invader, enters the battlefield, tapped. Yeah, it's a sealed card. Not happy about it. It's a big dumb idiot if you need a big dumb idiot.
Yeah, or if you need a giant. The flash, both the flash and tap, entering tapped kind of both work well and not well together because you can't ambush a blocker with it, but you can also play it at the end of the turn and immediately untap and attack with it.
Yeah, so it's not an ambush blocker, but it is an ambush attacker.
Exactly. So
it's a half C card, half C flash.
Yeah, I mean it is on theme, right? A giant rogue is probably not very stealthy. So
flavorful.
But yeah, I mean I'll play this card probably basically a 2, and then if you really want giants, it can go up from there.
All right, guys. So that is the end of our blue. We made our goal-ish about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 17 minutes. So we will go ahead and jump over to the black one. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'll be posting that here in just a couple hours for you. It should probably already be on there by the time you get to the end of this video. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and I hope you guys come back and check out the rest of our set review. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. This content is also sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves. If you guys enjoyed the content, consider checking out the links below and using our discount codes. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.